Hey everybody, welcome to Do You Believe on Paranormal Zone TV. I want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight. For those who may be new to the show, if you would please subscribe, I'd appreciate it. And also please don't forget to give the show a like. I have an awesome guest with us tonight. I'm so excited to have him. His name is James Keenan, and he is the author of Dark Shadows and Catastrophe. And he has just released his second book, 10/22/2036. It's the second book to the first book. So, with that, let's welcome James to the show. Hey, James, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Noreen. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, yes, I was so excited. I found you on Facebook, and I was so excited to. I want you to share your terrifying story with shadow people. The viewers will love your story. You've written a second book as well. Now, for those, I'm telling you, I've read some of his book, and it is a terrifying story. And this starts way back when he was 4 years old, and he'll go through all this with us. And now the first book, James, it was just it was based on true events. However, you used another person. You used your middle name rather than having the whole story being based on true events.
Correct. Probably about 40% of the book is based on true events, and then I had originally, years ago, thought about just doing it completely on my own life, and later on I decided to make it into a fictional book and create a storyline as well. But a good portion of, especially the detailed portions of it, come directly from what happened and occurred to me in my life.
And you probably didn't even have to do it. You probably just, the whole thing with true events would have been awesome, the story in itself. And now you've written the second book, and the second book is there's no fiction in it as well, right? It's all true events.
The second book is fictional also.
Oh, it is?
Yes, it's fictional. It continues with the storyline from Dark Shadows and Catastrophe.
But why did you do that when it's based on true events?
You know what? Just a lot of the jobs that I had in the past, it just wouldn't have been acceptable at the time I was in law enforcement. And I felt that, bringing it as a fictional character and adding additional pieces and elements to it just created a story that kind of pulled away from my own life.
Okay.
And that was just the way that I at the time I wanted it to go. But like I had said, if I had done it years ago when I initially had, planned on, telling everything, it would have just been completely about the dark shadows and the other issues that have happened and occurred.
Well, yeah, because your story is so awesome. So before we start, would you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself? And I'm really interested in your archaeology and anthropology background.
Sure. So I got my degree in interdisciplinary studies with my major in anthropology and archaeology. Obviously, I'm very fascinated with ancient history. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that have been left out. And then also with a lot of experiences that I've had in my life, it was just something that I was pulled towards. On top of that, I have had, many different careers, including law enforcement. I was a police officer in Texas, and also in law enforcement in Southern California as well for years. And then including that, I was also in investigations in some way, shape, or form, from retail investigations to insurance investigations as well. And just always had that fascination with, finding out the facts and the details about certain things. And I think a big part of that is just from experiences that have happened, sometimes trying to understand them.
Mm-hmm. You're writing another book as well, and this one will be non-fictional.
Correct. So I have Dark Shadows and Catastrophe and 10/22/2036 just came out in June, which was the final portion of that. In between those, I actually wrote another fictional book called Blue Blood on the Border, which is a supernatural horror book based on a police officer that's a serial killer. And I pulled from a lot of things that I saw on the job, and details from crime scenes and things like that, and kind of worked it all into the police officer being the killer instead of the individuals and all that. And I have a fourth fictional book getting ready to come out soon, and then my next book is going to be non-fictional. It'll be my first attempt at a non-fictional book.
And is that going to be on your experiences as well?
It's going to be a lot about what I think dark shadows, the dark shadow figures are, and some of the encounters that I've had out in the desert or in the mountains that dealt with portals and dealt with these beings, whatever these things are. And I'm going to also include a lot of hieroglyphs and pictoglyphs that I've located out in the desert that kind of, go into past history that has either been forgotten or just hasn't been told correctly as to, long, ancient, distant past.
Okay, so let's start with your story. Your story starts when you were 4 years old. So you want to start with that?
So, well, even sooner, before that, in the very early 1970s, when I was not quite 2 years old, unfortunately I drowned. And I was probably in the water for about 5 to 8 minutes is what the paramedics estimated, due to the fact that I was completely blue and getting ready to go and turn purple. It was at a relative's house in the pool, and I was obviously pulled out. My father started resuscitation on me until the paramedics got there. The paramedics continued CPR, and at some point in the back of the ambulance, I was brought back to life, or near death before that took place. I had an experience when I was on the other side, I guess you could say, too. It was, you hear a lot about, and I've done a lot of looking into this and investigating, and I think that's part of why I went into investigations, was kind of listening and seeing what other people had when they had passed or when they were at near-death experience, what they encountered. And mine was nothing like that. I didn't see any lights. There were no people waiting for me, no relatives waiting for me. As a matter of fact, it was complete darkness, but you could obviously feel and sense everything without any type of visual perception. And there was an awareness of so many beings around you, and the ability to just be anywhere and everywhere was that quick. It was instant. But all of this took place in just darkness. But it wasn't scary or anything like that. It didn't even really matter anymore. There seemed to be like maybe a slight change from, having used visual perception to suddenly not having it and having to recognize that. But even though that I was about a year and a half, it seemed like I was no longer an infant or a toddler. There was awareness. It was just complete awareness. And then suddenly I was traveling very quickly, and I was waking up in the back of the ambulance. And what's really interesting is most 1.5-year-olds being 1.5. Most 4 or 5-year-olds don't remember what they did when they were 4 or 5. I have complete recollection from that moment on in my life. You could take me anywhere that I had been at that young age, and I can drive and tell you directions. I spoke at a higher level, not an adult level, but it almost felt like maybe my awareness suddenly was at like a 10 to 12-year-old's level of thinking and understanding. And so I was in the hospital there, and I remember just, I would not let go of my mother, and I was just crying. And I remember the doctor telling my mother and father that I was going to probably be a vegetable or have just terrible cognitive issues throughout the rest of my life. And I didn't say anything. They said he may not always be responsive. He may have issues hearing, talking, all of this. And the moment we left the hospital, I was talking at a much higher level than before the drowning. And I mean, obviously, I like to at least hope. I think I have no issues in that sense. But so, what was interesting too was this darkness that I was in when I don't know where it was. I'm still trying to understand that because it just doesn't agree with what everyone else says from their near-death experience. But the fact that when I was in the hospital, I still saw these pockets of this exact type of darkness everywhere. And for a couple weeks after that experience, these pockets were popping up. And I don't know if you want to call it portals or not, because I didn't at that time see anything come out of them. It was just in our 3D space, these pockets of darkness just covered whatever was in front of it, and you could look into it, and it was just pitch black. There was absolutely nothing, just nothing, no reflection, no anything. And I kind of thought it was normal, so I didn't say anything. So for the next, that lasted for only a couple of weeks, and then everything just returned to normal. At this time, I was living in Hollywood, California, and at the age of 4, my parents moved us to La Habra, California. And I even remember the house, and the street was Calle Don Juan, and it was a big house. We had moved from an apartment to a home, and between, for these couple of years, absolutely nothing took place. And for the first month that we were in this house, everything was fine. I was so excited because, suddenly as a child, I had this huge backyard on a hillside to play, and this big house to experience and to do everything. And the layout of the house, my room was down a hallway on the left side. The bathroom was on the right, and there was another room all the way towards the front on the right side. At the end of the hallway was my parents' room, was the master bedroom. So this room was pretty large. It had a walk-in closet, and absolutely loved it. There was no problems, no issues with sleep at night. And then probably about maybe a month or 6 weeks into being in the house, I was asleep one night, and something woke me up, and I had a bookcase that had all my toys on it. I loved Hot Wheels. It had a ton of Hot Wheels and a ton of marbles, because I used to love to crush them, with the Hot Wheels. And I have a bit of OCD, so they were in a specific position with the marble in between, and the cars squared off with the marble so that none of the marbles could fall. And this one night, just out of nowhere, the cars started rolling around, and then the cars fell off. And I thought, maybe there's an earthquake or something. I'd been through that when I was a kid, but nothing else was moving. And I looked around, and I kind of got a little scared. And then one marble at a time was falling off. And that started to scare me, because you would think that all the marbles would fall at one time. But one marble at a time fell, the next marble, and scared the heck out of me. So as a kid, I grabbed the covers and covered myself up completely. And I was too afraid to get out of the bed and go run to my parents' room. So I think the rest of that night, I stayed up for quite a while. I obviously probably fell asleep. In the morning, I had a single window that was right next to the bed, to the right of the bed. And the light was coming through the side, so the room was lit up a little bit. And I got up, and I looked over on the floor, and there were the marbles in the car, and it still kind of scared me. So I jumped up and ran into my parents' house. Into their bedroom, which was right next to me at the end of the hall. And I told them about it. And, they told me, oh, it was nothing, you were dreaming. So I was like, I don't think it was a dream. But, there was a dream. So I don't think so, but okay. So I went to the restroom, and I was still a little afraid to go back into the room. And when I went back in, all the Hot Wheels and the marbles were back up on top of the bookcase. And that scared the heck out of me. And I went running out of the room all the way to the kitchen where there was the most light. And I was just shaking. I couldn't speak. A few minutes later, my mom came out and made breakfast. And she asked me what was wrong, and I told her, I said, the marbles were moving, and now they're back up. And, she told me, it's your imagination, you're a kid.
Mm-hmm. Now, what was the description of this dark creature?
Well, so for another few days, nothing happened. And then on one evening, I was in my room, and I had forgot to close the closet door, which I always wanted the door closet. And I looked up, and there was this shadow figure. It was probably about 4.5 feet tall. It had no legs, but it looked like a lower portion, but no legs. It had hands, and it was standing over in the corner between the closet and the entry door to my room. And this thing had, it wasn't a hat, it was an archer's hat, kind of, I guess kind of like what you would see like on Peter Pan or something like that. And I grabbed the covers and shoved them over, and I opened up just a little portion of the sheets to look through, and this thing was still there, and it wasn't moving. And I tried to focus on it more, but where the face was supposed to be, it was almost cloudy, but hazy, but it was a dark haze. And then it was gone. And I could not move, I couldn't scream or anything. So that night I just spent looking out through that little slat in the covers.
My God. And then you talked about in your book about later it would materialize anywhere?
Yeah, so as I was so afraid, I started having my parents, sleep with me, and they were, and later on, in my room, at first it started coming up from underneath the bed, was sleeping. And I had the covers over me, and it didn't make actual physical contact with me. It would take the sheets and pull the sheets down so tight around the bed that I couldn't even breathe. And it got to a point where I almost felt like I was going to pass out. And at that point, it would let go and be gone. And I was, I couldn't move, I couldn't scream or anything. And nobody would believe me. Then it would start that I had the closet door closed other nights. And the door would open, and it would peek out some nights and just stare. And it had, even though it didn't have a face, it almost seemed like you could see like this grin, like a wavy. Its face was wavy, not quite clear, like it hadn't materialized completely, but you could still see it grinning, and it just scared the crap out of me. And then other times it would come out and be flying through the room just all night. And I was horrified. I couldn't speak, couldn't scream. After a couple weeks, though, I got the strength sometimes to scream. And when I would scream, obviously my parents would come running, and it would fly back into the closet. And obviously they didn't believe me.
And it would, so again, it would hold you in place where you couldn't move. And then you also stated that the figure lifted you off the ground.
It did. Later on, it started getting physical. It started holding me down by my hands. There was one night where the closet door started to open, and I had made this plan that I was going to jump out of bed and run as fast as I could and get out of there before it came out. And I got to the door, and it picked me up and lifted me off of the ground, and it pushed me all the way up to the ceiling where I was facing down towards the floor, and it was horizontal with me and holding me, and it was inches, and I couldn't do anything. And it just, it looked, it was so close to my face, and it almost seemed like it was trying to communicate with me verbally, but it couldn't. It seemed like it was talking, but I couldn't hear or understand anything. And it seemed to just tick it off more. It just got angrier. At that point, though, I was able to scream out, and I fell to the ground, and I physically got hurt. And then there were other times when I would try to run out of the room, and it would slam the door before I got there. But that woke my parents up, and they'd come running in, and they'd be angry. Why was I up playing around or messing around? And they didn't believe me. And then after that, it started materializing elsewhere. It was in the bathroom, in the hallway, in the garage, and then from there it moved on to where it wasn't just at night. I could be in the middle of the day, and I would be in the restroom, and I would be looking in the mirror, and it would be behind me, and I could see it in the mirror. I would turn, and I couldn't see it. I'd turn back into the mirror, and it would be there again, and it would just, it was constant for a couple of years. This just kept happening.
And then, let's see, and then you moved to another location?
Well, before that, there was another time where my parents didn't believe me, and my parents ended up having my sister, and I got moved down the hall to a different room. And one day, it came out of the new closet. It came right up to my face. What looked like grinning, it flew out, down the hallway, into my parents' room, and then I started hearing screaming. And I ran down the hall and into my parents' room, and my dad was on the bed, and the whole bed was just shaking up and down. And my mom was off the bed, and she was screaming. And I could see what it was. It was this same shadow figure with this same cap on it. And I started yelling at it, and it stopped and it looked at me. And then my mom started screaming at it, and I don't know if it was confused or what, but it shot right out. It stopped shaking the bed, and it shot out the side wall. Then I told my parents, I said, "Now do you believe me?"
Wow.
And they, obviously they did. I stayed that night in the room with my parents. When we discussed it in the morning, they said that it looked like a large figure, just a big ball, almost like a dark bear. And I told them, no, that's not what it was. It was this 4.5-foot figure with the hat on. But they said they saw something and they could see it materialize, but it wasn't what I had seen. And
did this happen every night?
It only happened once to my parents. In that house, it happened for a few months almost every night, and then it started slowing down. When my sister was born, it started only becoming infrequent. And then at about the age of 6, we finally ended up moving from there elsewhere in Orange County.
So this started when you were about 4 years old. Well, when you were about 4 years old, and then through 6, and then you moved to another location?
Correct, and then nothing at that house. We moved to Tustin, and there was absolutely nothing. We lived there for about a year, and then we moved to Paradise Valley, Arizona. And we were there for about 6 months, and I had seen nothing. One day it was pouring rain, which is very rare in Paradise Valley, Arizona. And my sister and I were playing in a room that was converted into a storage room full of boxes. And it was dark out, but it was still daytime because of the storm. And we were climbing on the boxes even though we weren't supposed to. And all of a sudden, after all this time away, this thing shot up out of a box and we were up on the boxes, so we couldn't run out of the room. And I got as far as I could, and I accidentally fell through one of the boxes. It was one of the larger, I think it was like a Mayflower box for moving. And my sister had already exited the room, and it held me. It put the top on and held me inside the box, and I could not get out. And I started screaming, and my mom came in yelling, at me, quit playing, because she had constantly told us to not be playing in this room. And it let go and was gone. And then that night, my sister and I shared a room. We were in different beds. We had a nightstand in the front. I look up, and there it is again, up at the ceiling, just slowly coming down, and it got right, probably less than an inch away from my face. And again, it started what seemed like it was trying to communicate. Even though it was hazy, you could still kind of make out the silhouette of its face and its mouth. And I couldn't hear it, and I couldn't understand it. It almost seemed like we weren't in the right space and time together, and it was getting angry because it couldn't communicate with me.
So this thing followed you no matter what house you were in. It still followed you, and
correct.
It tormented you physically, mentally, and physically.
Pretty
What
much,
did
yes.
you, when it was in your face or in your room appearing before you, did you ever try to talk to it or communicate with it?
No, I was horrified. I could barely move. But what it was trying to say, I couldn't understand. And it seemed just to make it angrier.
Wow. And this went on until,
Well, that was the only time at that house, and then we moved again to Littleton, Colorado.
was that 19, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was 9 years old at the time, and nothing had happened for 6 months, and then one day at night I had to go down into the basement to get something. And when I was down there, I walked in and I had turned on the light. When I got to the bottom of the stairs, the light went out, and I started freaking out. But the moment the light went out, suddenly I could see what looked like all those old portals, these pitch black blobs of nothingness. And then suddenly lots of these creatures came out. The basement must have had maybe 6, 7, or maybe 8 of them. And they were going about their business as if I wasn't there. Like I don't know, like maybe I went into their place of existence. But I started moving and I accidentally hit something, and all of them turned and looked at me at the same time.
How many of them were there?
There had to have maybe been 6, maybe 7. And the moment that they noticed that I noticed them, it was on. I mean, they came towards me. I got pushed all the way up against like the cinder block wall of the basement. And the other ones were flying around, and there was this huge, tall, I mean, this one was not the shadow figure that had been tormenting. None of them were. This thing was, I don't know, it had to have been maybe 7 feet tall, super thin, no hat, but it had a face that was extremely dark, just pitch black. It wasn't hazy like the one that I had seen all the years before. And it held me up against the wall while these other ones were flying around. And I don't know, it almost felt like they were trying to figure out what to do with me. And then out of nowhere, there was this huge red flash of light, and it seemed like a wave of fire coming from the back end of the basement, from the other cinder wall, all the way. And they all turned around and flew right towards it, and it came and blinded me, and suddenly I opened my eyes, and everything was gone, and the lights were back on. And I got the hell out of there as fast as I could and ran all the way up. And I didn't say anything about it to anybody because I didn't know how to explain it. But that was the only thing that ever happened at that house in Colorado. And it wasn't the same figure this time.
And you were about 9 years old at that time?
9 years old.
What year was that? Do you remember?
It was 1981.
Okay. And then... And I have you next into 1987, or was there something in between that?
So we moved to Odessa, Texas, and nothing ever happened there. Then from Odessa, we moved to El Paso, Texas, and we were there in that house. And
how come you guys moved so much?
You know what? I think it was just due to the recession during the 70s and the type of job my father had. He moved where the work was at the time. And so in the El Paso house, before 1987, I saw my shadow figure 2 times before 1987, and it was a 2-story home, and I was in my room, which was at the end of the hall, and I could see it walking towards my room, and I got up and I slammed the door, and it never came in. Another time it did the same thing, walking towards me, and I slammed the door, and it never came in, and then I never saw that figure again. So then, one day, I was in Boy Scouts, and we were in a place above Alamogordo, New Mexico. We were camping, and a friend of mine and I were in one tent, and it was blue skies, beautiful when we went to bed. Suddenly, about an hour later, this sudden storm out front. The wind was just hellacious. My friend and I remember zipping up the tent, and suddenly out of nowhere, we saw all this lightning. And it didn't look like regular lightning. We could see the lightning strike the ground and almost like a snake continue its way towards the tent. It unzipped the tent door, came in, and started electrocuting us. And my friend at the time said that he was so freaked out because he saw all these black things, these flying around me so fast that he couldn't see me anymore. And I didn't see that. I just saw the electricity in the things, zapping us. And before it almost started, it ended. And he was just completely freaked out. The entire campground kind of got messed up and ruined because of the wind, so we ended up going home that day. And he and I talked and discussed it in the car while we were going home. And then we never talked about it anymore. And then nothing happened again until 1987, which was the last time that I ever saw the shadow figure that was with me since I was a child. And I was 15 years old, and I thought it was over. I'd grown stronger to it. These things, I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I think I was more confused and interested in them. But this last time I was in my waterbed in my room, and I was just about to fall asleep when the waterbed just started shaking, and it got intense. So much so that it threw me out of the bed, the waves. And I hit the ground. My nose started bleeding because I hit on my stomach, and I tried getting up, and that's when I saw it on top of me, holding me down by the shoulders and just trying to push me as hard as it could into the ground. When I looked up, I saw another one of these black portals or abysses form on the wall. It shot into the thing, and that's the last time that I ever saw that creature.
And this was, how old were you then?
I was 15 years old.
15, okay. What do you think? Did you ever discuss this with anyone outside of your home?
So obviously my one friend that it happened to, we talked about it. Unfortunately, he ended up moving maybe a year after that back to Odessa, Texas. And I was too afraid to discuss it with people because I didn't know how, I thought people would think that I'm crazy.
Well, what about your parents? You told your parents about this.
We talked about that. They knew what happened to it, and I told them every time it happened, and they believed me after that every time it took place. But in regards to talking to anyone else, no. But then later on in life, I started having other things happen to me, which was just as crazy.
Like what?
And this is one of the reasons why I made the book fictional until I was no longer a police officer. When I was a police officer one day, I believe it was 1994, we had gotten on a call to a domestic violence. It was a domestic violence call. We had been to that house multiple times because this husband and wife were constantly going at it. They had, I believe it was 3 or 4 children. My partner, I was still in my rookie year.
This was in 1994.
This was in 1994, correct. My partner and take them for domestic violence. So he had sat them all down on the sofa downstairs, and he said, I want everybody here, everyone that's in the house, get over here now. And so they all gathered, and he was talking to them, and I was probably about 6 feet behind him due to the fact that I was watching the staircase and the entrance way into the kitchen to make sure nobody came from behind us. And all of a sudden, we started hearing tons of voices cursing, just horrible, horrendous cursing, just foul, the worst foul language. And my partner got angry with the husband, and he said, I told you, I want everybody down here now. Get everyone up here, yell up there, whoever's up there, get them down here. And the father looked at him, and he says, everybody is here. He goes, I don't know how to explain what's happening. And my partner said, I'm about ready to arrest you guys. And this screaming and vulgar language was just getting louder and louder. So the father again said, everybody's here. So I told my partner, well, I'll go up and I'll check it out. So I had my flashlight. It was a large mag light at the time. Started going up the staircase. It was pretty narrow, probably about 13 or 14 steps. At the top of the staircase, on both sides of the hallway, they had that old paneling, that like 1980s paneling where it was that fake wood.
Yeah.
And it had all those ovals in it and everything. As I walked down this hall and I looked to my left and right, there were thousands of faces in the wood panel where all the ovals and, you know, the wood looks, they were alive. It was just thousands of faces, small faces, just cursing and telling my partner and I to get the F out of here. You don't belong here. And then the leader or whatever goes, especially you. You shouldn't even be here anymore. You don't belong here. And I looked at it, and I was trying to look for a projector or something, thinking that they had planned this, and I couldn't find anything. And I shined my light on that wall, and it looked, they weren't three-dimensional, it was two-dimensional. They were in there, but they were moving, and I don't know how they did it, but I wasn't as scared or afraid as I was when I was young. I was kind of upset and angry. And the leader of all these said, yeah, you're not even supposed to be here anymore. I walked down the stairs. I told my partner, I said, hey, get over here quick. And they're still cussing, cursing. He gets up, he looks up. Apparently he had called for backup because we thought there were a lot of additional people up there. As we were getting to the top, 2 more officers came through the door thinking that we needed backup. Everything stopped. We got to, it was just that fake wood paneling. And at that moment in my life, I suddenly realized that I thought that it was telling me I should have never lived and been here anymore.
Really? Oh my God.
So,
and was that the last time?
I've run into other things, and I still see some things on occasion, especially these portals.
What about in 2011? What happened in 2011?
So remember I told you I was going to write this book earlier in 1999, and I started writing it, and I got to chapter 5, and it was going to be based on my life in this, and that book disappeared out of my apartment. I looked everywhere for it, and it was gone. I couldn't find it. I mean, I had spent a good couple months writing those 5 chapters, just due to the fact that I was pretty afraid to bring it out to the public, because I didn't know how people were going to react, especially, with the jobs that I had. And so I was like, I'm just done with this. think I'm going to start writing this, but I'm going to do it fictionally, and I'm going to change the story and add other stuff to it. So Dark Shadows and Catastrophe, if you were ever to ask me how much of it is real, I'd say about 40% of it. But the day that I started writing it, I was in my office upstairs in my house here in Arizona. Actually, it was the last house I was at. I'm in a different house now. The moment I put pen to paper, we had probably about 8 doors inside the house, and we had those huge those rubber door stops that you cannot pull those doors over. There's just no way. The moment I put pen to paper, every single door in the house slammed shut. It went right over the door stops. One door actually cracked about 3 inches, almost telling me, "Don't you dare write about it."
Wow.
And you know what? That just ticked me off more, and I made sure that I wrote it, but obviously fictional.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, it's awesome. Now, now let's see. There was another instance. Okay, so what's happening now?
Well, first off, one other thing in I think it was in 2000, or I think it was the year 2000. I was at a job working, and it was a very, very old building in Ventura, California. And they had decided to do renovation, and they had knocked out a wall to this building, and they found an old bomb shelter that had been lost. They had built over this sometime probably in the late 60s. The moment that they opened up that bomb shelter, the next evening I started seeing not dark shadow figures, but just what looked like, I don't know, almost figures just walking up and down the halls during the day, during the night, everywhere. But
and you still, and to this day, you still, when you see them, you don't talk to them.
I don't talk to them. So recently,
have you reached out to anybody?
You know what, Noreen? I've never been that type of person to do a paranormal thing or to talk to anyone. I just have this ability to see these portals and these things, and it just becomes normalcy. Recently, though, for the first time ever, I had gone to up north here in Arizona. I went up north to Sedona to watch a lecture, and I had heard about all these great things about Sedona, how there's all this incredible vibes and all that. The moment that I drove into Sedona, which was just in May of this year, I got so nauseated I had to pull over and vomit. And as I started looking, I've never in my life seen so many of these black blobs and portals as I've seen in that city. And I suddenly started seeing things just shooting in and out of them, in and out of them. It almost seemed like we were we, meaning us, in that city are invading their space. There was so much of this going on. I stayed for the lecture. I could barely handle it. I had the worst headache. I just got tired of seeing all these things popping up, and then I got out of there. And that's probably the absolute worst. Wasn't scared or anything, just physically ill. And I had this feeling like it seemed like I was in the wrong place or in the wrong, I don't know, dimension or whatever, and I had invaded them all of a sudden.
So let's go back. This all started when you were about 4 years old, seeing these shadow people. What was happening in your life? Do you remember what was happening in your life at that time?
I was going to preschool, doing what regular kids do.
I mean, how were you emotionally?
I was fine. No issues. Obviously, that's caused a lot of anxiety issues that I still deal with now. But
were you in constant fear after you first saw your first shadow person? Were you in constant fear after that?
Oh, definitely. I was horrified. Like I said, I was before it happened to my mom and dad. I would throw just a fit. I went into just panic mode every night. I would beg and plead to sleep with them, and if they refused to let me sleep in the bed with them, I had to have them with me until I fell asleep in the room. And I'd fall asleep, but I mean, it wouldn't matter. When they were gone, is when the things started happening again with this creature.
From what I understand from other stories I've heard about shadow people, the more fear they feed off of your fear.
That definitely could be, because it used to hold me down, and it had what I said was like this grin, and I was paralyzed. It was like it was crushing my chest all the time, and the only thing I could do is stare back at it. I couldn't even close my eyes.
Could you see its eyes?
No, like I said, it was always wavy. It seemed like there was a face there, and I could make out maybe lips, and it looked like it was trying to communicate with me. And the more that it tried to communicate and I not communicate back with it, the angrier it would get. And then, like you had said, I mean, later on in life, I started getting angry and upset at these things, and maybe that was when it started becoming less and less.
Okay. Did you ever have a loss of time?
I've had a lot of loss of time. It's always when it's one of those black blobs, or I may think that I want to go. I feel sleepy, or I'm about to sleep, and then suddenly a long time has elapsed where I thought it was just a second or two, and I think the worst was maybe like a 3-hour lapse in time.
Has this ever come across your mind that you may have been abducted by aliens or taken into their ship, or some kind of connection with aliens?
No, I don't believe that.
But you can't.
I personally, and I mean, like, I've been doing a lot of research. I personally think I don't think they're supernatural. Label it paranormal. I think maybe it's like interdimensional, maybe. Or I've been reading a lot up on ancient jinn, and there seems to be so many connections to that, to where sometimes I feel like maybe I'm invading their realm and I don't know it, and it's upsetting them, and they're coming to, I don't know, push me back or keep me here.
But why you, and why for so long, for so many years?
I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't had that much of contact with them as it is with the portals, or seeing these darkness things. But up in Sedona was a different story.
Has any of these shadow people, besides you, and they did visit your parents at one time, have they ever been affected by these shadow people more than one time?
It was one time with my mom and dad, one time time with my friend at Scouts. I don't. My sister was too young to remember if she saw anything in that room when we were in Paradise Valley. I think she was like, she had to have been 2 or 3 years old, so she just doesn't even recall being in there.
So now your attitude has changed from being fearful to angry, and you don't see them anymore.
Angry, and I've the last couple of years I've just researched the heck out of it. Like I said, I think it's more of a dimensional thing. I don't know if my near-death experience brought them to me or me to them, or an ability to see them. I personally think that everything was tied into my near-death experience. And trying to figure that out, but when I look at what other people are doing and all that, it doesn't seem to fit what I've gone through. But maybe there's bits and pieces that could be similar, just due to the fact that it's going to happen like that no matter what.
Well, that's why, James, it's so important for you to write a non-fictional book on all of this. Gather forget about, you have your other books out, but now you need to make it non-fictional. You need to put everything in writing from the very beginning and put this as fact, the whole story as fact-based. It's really important, because I have talked to other people and done other shows on shadow people, and your story is different from the others. And it's really important that you put this out there to let everybody know what your experience was, and that your experience was different from other people and from what you've heard.
And I'm working on it. It's taking time, and like I said, I was just very hesitant based upon the careers that I had taken, and up until very recently, people looked at you, a little weird.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. And it's still, I'm still in that stage where I'm here, I'm talking to you all now, and it's the first time that I've started to become comfortable with letting people know that parts of my book are based in true fact as to what happened.
Is this your first show?
Yes, this is my first show.
You mean this is the first time you've ever done a radio or a video show?
It's the first time. You're number one for me.
Oh, awesome. Well, when they make your story into a movie, don't forget about me.
Okay.
That's an awesome story. I'm still trying to figure out why this happened to you. And for so many years, I know other people that I'm going to ask about your story. I'm going to ask some questions around about this.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you told us an incident when you were a police officer. Did you have any other experiences in the paranormal? Oh God, you do. You do.
I'm not ready to discuss.
James, are you kidding me? We're sitting here waiting. We've got hundreds of people watching the show. They want to hear your story. This is all verbal. Come on.
Okay. My newest book, there's a big reason why it's called October 22nd, 2036. When I sleep, I can't see the past, but I can see future events. It doesn't always, I'd say maybe 8 out of 10 times it comes true. On October 22nd, 2036, I constantly have this dream about that date. And it has to do with a dimensional shift that's not good for any of us.
James, I have to also tell you this. from all the other interviews I've done and all the people that I've talked to, for those who have been, I know a lot of people don't like the term alien abduction, but I kind of am tending to think that you may have been taken. The stories are that those that have been taken by aliens, they come back with gifts, like telepathy, and other gifts that they normally weren't born with. And you're kind of telling me that you have some gifts here.
I still feel that it's more from my near-death experience because I can't even begin to explain to you what it was like because those senses don't exist here. And so when I drown, I don't remember the drowning, but I have full recollection from wherever I was, whatever place it was, up until now, to this day. I have perfect memory. I mean...
And at that age, nobody... I don't think there's anybody at 1.5 years old that can remember something like that.
I mean, I can tell you, I had never been back to that house in La Habra. And then when I was, I think, 18, I drove there. I didn't need a map. I didn't need nothing. I knew the street name. I knew the number. I drove right to the house. I know where people have lived. I remember conversations going on in that house when I was, 3 and 4 years old. And I've always had a better understanding of, than kids that age or kids that were 9, 10, or 11. I understood more. So I really, truly believe that was where everything started from. And like I said, I had seen some of that instantly right after, and then it was just gone after a couple of weeks. And then not until, about 2.5 years later did things start manifesting more and more. But if I could, I wish I could explain to you the experience I had when I passed. But it's not what anyone else has ever said. I saw no light. I didn't see people. I didn't meet family members. It was a...
All right, so let me ask you this. And sorry, viewers, don't get mad at me because I interrupted James because I need to ask him this. Okay, you didn't see any lights. You didn't see any people. Was there any voices saying that it's not your time and that we're sending you back? How did you die and then you came back? Was it just all darkness? Okay, what am I trying to say? All right, well, go ahead. So it was all darkness, and then all of a sudden you were alive again.
Yeah, so it was darkness, but it was like blissful perfection, like being out in space that we don't know yet, I don't know, like a dark matter, and that everything was connected. Like I knew everybody that was around me.
So you didn't see them though, but you didn't see them. I couldn't see them, but you felt them.
It was more of a sense of feel. Yeah, it's a sense that we don't have yet, and I can't explain it. It's like instant feeling, instant communication, instant being able to be anywhere instantly. And then, like I said, suddenly I was traveling at just incredible speed through the darkness, and then I remember waking up, coming to in the back of the ambulance.
Yeah, that's... I did hear years ago on television, they had a man that said that he had died, and he also explained that it wasn't like what other people had talked about, that actually he was afraid It was all darkness. It was all black. And that was the only other time I heard that.
Oh,
and,
but I loved it. I didn't want to leave. I mean, it was just the most, it was perfection. I mean, I couldn't say I was upset to leave because, gosh, I hugged my mom so hard. I don't think I let go of her for hours, to be back. But it was just, it was everything at once, just this perfect feeling. And you didn't need, there was no visual need. There was no visual senses or no feeling anymore. It was just the ability to be above and a part of absolutely everything at the same time, no matter where it was.
Were your parents with you at this time in the ambulance?
Yeah, yes, they were both with me.
And do you remember what they said to you when you woke up?
I was in and out of consciousness in the ambulance. It was when we were into the hospital, in the emergency room, that I remember the doctor telling them that I was going to be a vegetable, or that I was going to have just terrible cognitive abilities, and he was trying to explain to them what this meant. And my dad's looking at me and saying, he looks fine. He's exactly how he was before he fell in. Mm-hmm. And then I remember I would not let go of my mom. We got into the car, and I could already speak a little, but now I was able to communicate a lot better. And it's always been that way. And I didn't explain to them or tell them anything about this because, not until later on in life, because I didn't know what happened or what it was. I knew it was somewhere that I didn't want to leave, but that at the same time I was happy to be with my parents again.
Did your parents say that you talked early? Your verbal, your sentences, you talked early, and what about walking early?
Everything was way ahead of time.
Interesting.
Yeah, the only thing I did was I had a pretty bad speech impediment until about the age of 6. But boy, I could solve all types of math problems and do all kinds of different things. But I'm not musically inclined. I'm terrible at drawing. But it's my ability to maintain and retain information. I'm like a sponge when it comes to that.
Oh, I'm really curious about your case, James. I know you. I don't know. I'm going to ask around because it just sounds to me that it could be. I know you don't want to hear this, but it just sounds to me like some kind of alien connection of some kind. But I need to do some more research myself and talk to some more people about this. Very, very interesting story. And then, so when you came back to life and you started speaking like an older child and you walked early, do you remember anything else that might have been different for a child your age?
Like I said, I had, even though I was like 3, 4, 5, I was already, doing 6th, 7th grade math, science, all that already.
Did you accelerate in school then? Did you move ahead?
Oh yeah, I was always in honors programs from the get-go, even through college. In high school, I graduated with honors. I have this great ability to understand concepts theoretically, but not to be able to apply them.
Very interesting. You went to the University of Santa Barbara as well.
Correct.
Yeah. Had you ever thought about moving forward to a PhD?
No.
Mm-hmm. And you're also interested in archaeology and anthropology. Listen. Okay. I have to ask you a question. I saw on your Facebook that you went to Rome.
Yes.
And there's secret passages in Rome. Oh, this should be another show. Does anybody have any questions about shadow people before I get into this? What time is it? Oh my God, it's already been over an hour. All right, hold on. I think we're going to have to do another show with you on that. I'm really interested in those secret passages. It's getting over an hour. Let's see. There's a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Ward Allen video. Oh, we already. Okay. Have you ever had an alien encounter? See, people are also thinking that as well.
You know what? I don't believe I don't believe that. No.
Okay. Patty Hardkey. Let's see. Oh gosh, something that just moved. Hold on for a minute. Darn it. Okay. Is this going to be a book or a movie? They want it to be a book or a movie. Obviously you haven't been around. Okay, so if you start making the circuit, which I hope you do, you'll get noticed, and hopefully somebody will see your story or hear your story. Okay. Let me see. Annette Hunt. Can shadow people be gotten rid of? If so, how? Yes, either like cutting an attachment or driven out of a house with your prayer and sage holy oil. Incense, holy objects, exorcisms, but not in every case, can just make it worse in some cases. When you were getting these visits, and even in older in life, you didn't contact anybody, so, and you didn't know anything about the paranormal, so you wouldn't have done anything about it. Paranormally.
I just don't believe in that stuff working. I don't believe in it. What I believe in is I took control finally. I see it almost as like an intermingling now, just between. Maybe sometimes I'm treading in their place and they're coming back into mine, but I don't see it as supernatural. I'm not afraid of it, and I don't believe in things like saging a house or something. And I've looked into it a lot. That's just not what I think these things are or what it would do, and I'm willing to live with it because it's just a part of what it's always been.
All right, there's a question from Prophecy. They came in late and they want to know the end of days. Your book is 10/22/2036. So what is the meaning?
I believe there's going to be some type of shift with the planet. I'm not sure. I haven't been able. When I dream about it, I never get to the very end to see exactly what's happening, but there's something with some sort of shift with the earth on that day, and it's a constant dream. And like I said, I'm not always right. The dreams, when I see something, it probably happens maybe 7 or 8 out of 10 times.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Nancy's saying, let's see, has there been times when encountering shadow people you show no fear upon seeing them? And I think we talked about that.
Yes.
You have no fear, and because I think your attitude has changed from fear to, like you said, being angry.
Yeah.
I think that's why. Because from what I understand, that's what shadow people do. They thrive on fear, and you don't have that fear anymore.
I don't have it anymore. Not much scares me anymore.
Okay. They wanted to hear your story. Okay, guys. Anybody else have a question on shadow people or his experience? Because I want to ask him a question that I'm really, really interested in. Aaron, go ahead, honey. Go put your question in. I'll ask him. Go ahead. Oh, Aaron, questions. What are shadow people and where do they come from?
And for me, like I said, they always seem to be attached to these. They're not, I always watch, like I see what other people talk about, these dimensions or these portals, and it's not what you think. It's like this blob of dark matter forming, and you can't see anything, and they're either around it or they're coming out of it or running into it, and I think that's where they come from, or where we accidentally cross into without knowing it.
Okay. You have a fascinating story, and I need to, like I said, I need to talk to other people about your story. It's very different. I have so many questions about your experience. Let's see. Oh, let me see. Hold on. I got another question. Lady Invasion. Have you ever seen a shadow figure morph?
No, I have not.
And Anita Ackerman. Is Nibiru appearing in 2036?
I'm sorry, you cut out a little.
From Anita Ackerman. Is Nibiru appearing in 2036?
No, it's. I don't believe in Nibiru, and it's not. Like I said, it's something with that happens to the planet, but I can't get to the end. I continue to have the dream, and right towards the end, it stops. And so on 10/22/2036, I filled in what I thought it could be. But it's not the end of my dream, because I haven't seen it. So it's the end of 10/22/2036 is fictional as to how I ended, but that date is, I can't begin to tell you just how often I dream about it and what's happening to people.
Really? Have you had any other dreams or anything come to you for other events that might happen? Like our president, can you tell us about President Trump? Is he going to finish out 4 years?
That's not how it works. Here, just a simple, my niece had a baby, and I told my wife, call him and congratulate him. She just had the baby, and they freaked out because she had just gone into labor and had the baby.
Wow. It's very interesting.
So I can't ask or control anything. It's just what I dream about.
Now, do you dream this, or does it just come to you?
No, I dream it.
You dream it.
Yes.
Do you dream?
Nothing happens to me while I'm awake. In that sense.
Okay. I got a couple of minutes left. I want to ask you, and I'd really like to do a show on this. You are interested in archaeology, but
yes.
Now is that tied into your statements that you make on these hidden passageways, and you talk about the Vatican having these passageways?
Sure. Well, what I truly believe in is that we've lost just a massive part of our ancient history. I'm not sure if there's aliens now, but I believe that in the past there had to have been some type of interaction with them, and that we have lost so much knowledge. And as an archaeologist and anthropologist, I don't have my doctorate degree. I have my bachelor's in that, so I'm not an anthropologist or archaeologist. But that was the exact reason why I got into that, was because for years now, I just think we are missing so much stuff, and it's purposely being held back. And the only way to get around that is to go out myself and find it or figure it out.
All right, so how did you find out about these secret passages?
Well, they know about the secret passages in the Vatican. They actually opened them up in 2000 for Jubilee to let people see into them. But I'm more concerned here in the desert in Arizona with the things that I've found, underground cave systems that have been buried unfortunately, because they're on state land, you're not allowed to do anything about it.
I'm surprised they're letting you even dig.
No, I haven't been able to. I've been using GPR, ground penetrating radar, to find them.
Oh, wow.
And then what's crazy is right around these are all these pictographs and petroglyphs of things that happened in the sky. And it leads me to believe that something tremendous happened to the planet and people had to go underground to survive. And that's a big part of both of my books.
Are these books going to be fiction or nonfiction?
Oh, no, it's part of Dark Shadows and part of 1022-2036. The fictional part is a lot of my belief system with that having happened and possibly needing to happen again. That whatever happened it comes in regular intervals while we're traveling through the universe, that our galaxy comes in contact with something.
Are these passages that you're finding through your radar system, is there any information on those, or just that you found them?
Yeah, there's no information on them. Like I said, you can't do anything about it because it's on state land. They won't let you do anything here.
Have you tried to contact other groups that might have the authority to do that?
No, I've been pretty selfish about trying to keep all that so I can write about it.
Are you with this radar? Are you able to get pictures from the underground?
No, it's all on computer.
Oh, so there's no images that come through?
Correct.
Interesting. Wow.
It's more like depth readings, changes in the stratigraphy and the depth readings.
Is there any land that you can go to that's not state-owned that might have these underground passages?
So my plan is to go to certain places here in Arizona that very few people know about, and I'm hesitant. I don't want us to make them where everybody's going, and research and get down there and see if theory that I have it could possibly be true.
Well, supposedly they're underground in Arizona. The aliens are there and underground.
And that's possible because what I theorize is that there is just a huge connecting cavern or system of tunnels that go from Arizona all the way to Alamogordo, New Mexico.
You know what? Wow. All right, so that's not state-owned. If you, on your radar, if you find this, are you going to dig?
Well, you can't dig because the caverns are already, they're held by I think it's the National Forestry and the BLM. But what it'll allow me to do is, connect latitude and possibly request to be on spelunking excavations with them as they go through portions of this cave that they've just barely breached down in southern Arizona.
Wow. Very interesting. That's awesome. All right. Well, James, is there anything else you want to say about shadow people?
No, we covered it.
Okay. All right. Well, James, it was such a pleasure to have you on the show. Again, let's show your books. The two books that we kind of touched on tonight is Dark Shadows and Catastrophe, and 1022-2036, which is a continuation. And these books can be purchased on Amazon.com. And or just put in James Keenan and the name of his book, and Amazon comes up. James, again, I want to thank you so much, and I am so honored that this is the very first show that you've been on, and don't forget me.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.
And I really hope that your story gets out there, that it gets noticed, and somebody may make a movie out of it. That would be awesome.
Thanks, Nerdy.
Thank you so much. Good night, James. Thanks.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.
Thanks.
Wow. Well, guys, what a story. What a story! And I need to check with some people about his story, and I don't know. I don't know. Just all I can say is, wow, what a story! And I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to give the show a like. And those who may have watched the show and you're not subscribed, if you please subscribe, I'd appreciate it. There's no show next week. Having a huge barbecue at the house. We got 50 people coming, and I got to get ready for it. But on the last Thursday of the month, Vanessa Hogel is coming back, and doing a show on unsolved mysteries. And I may ask her about James's story to see if she can come up with anything. I don't have my calendar. I don't have my calendar. Let's see for the shows for September, October. Oh, I don't have my calendar. Anyway, sorry guys. I'll let you know when the last show of the month with Vanessa, what the other upcoming shows are. Don't forget, you can sign up for, oh my God, I forgot to send out show reminders. It's so hard to remember all this stuff, but you can go to paranormalzone.tv and check on the tab for show reminders, or you can just go to the front page of my channel and for the upcoming shows, and you can hit set for show reminders, and you can get a show reminder. Let's do some shout outs. Oh, again, I want to thank my mods for being here tonight. I know Royce Hinman is here and Crystal Triplet, and I know Unique Annie sent me a message that they were having terrible storms. So I don't know if she made it or not. She might not have internet service. But I want to thank you again all. And please don't forget, send Royce your positive energy and prayers. Please, he needs them. We need to keep Royce here with us. And because of Royce and Crystal, you have an awesome chat room. If it wasn't for them, it would not be that good, because I don't have the time to do that during the show. So let's see. Also, Aaron Brody, honey, thank you so much. Yay, thank you so much for the super chat money. I really appreciate that. I don't know, can you guys tell I've got the new camera? I don't know if you can tell the difference in the video. I'm streaming 1080 now. I can stream 4K, but I can't do it yet. Not till I change my program. Oh, Annie was there. Okay, I didn't see Unique Annie. All right. And Unique Annie, there you are. Okay, thank you. And Unique Annie, too. So Royce, Crystal, and Annie, thank them so much for a great chat room. Let's do some shout-outs. Oh, and also, let's see. Chippeteri, update. Your husband, okay, Chipper, he's starting to feel better today, and husband was moved out of ICU last night. So that's good news. Keep us updated, and our prayers are with you, Chippeteri, and your husband. Please get well. All right, so let's do some shout outs. Okay. Aaron Brody, Anita Ackerman, B3 Airspace, Chippeteri, Dwayne Crump, Katie Palmer, Lady Invasion, Leonore Morano, Lily Tooby, Nancy, Patrice Costello, Patty Harnke, Royce, and the Truth Code Paranormal Blanket. And I know there were more. I saw more names, but anybody else? A Quiet 3 Storm. Anybody else want to shout out? I'm sure I know Carl White's out there, Anvil Hammer's out there, and Graham Crosby's out there as well. Annette Hunt. Anybody else want to shout out before I go? Katie Palmer. Again, Aaron Brody, thank you so much. It's much appreciated. Um, Anybody else want to shout out? Can you? Okay, so did you guys answer? Do you see the difference in the Anita NAH? Do you Barry Douglas? Oh, thanks. Hey, so do you guys see a change in the video at all? I spent a lot of money to make it better. Do you see a difference in the video? Oh, Tammy Heitzman. Tammy. Oh God. Well, I'm thinking about barbecue chicken and tri-tip, barbecued tri-tip. Did you guys? You didn't answer me. Do you see a difference in the video? Does it look any clearer? Yeah, it looks good. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, because it's 1080. It's doing audio right now. Oh no, yeah, it's 1080. Okay. Crisp and clear. Okay, all right. Thanks, Crystal. Thanks, guys. All right, I'm gonna go now. Have a great weekend. And I'm looking forward to the show next week as well. Party's Ghost. Thank you for joining us. Some of these names are new. Thanks. Kathy Gill. Tammy Z. Thanks, Aaron. Oh, thanks, Quiet Storm. Nebasetti. There you are. Jen. Nonio business. Nonio business. That sounds Italian. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna go. Hugs to everyone. Yes, group hugs to everybody. I'm gonna say goodnight now. Thank you all so much. Thanks to the mods. Great chat room. I see you on the 30th. We'll have another great show on the 30th, okay? And if you want to, go ahead and share my channel and let's bring in more people. I'd love that. I'm almost at 30,000 subscribers. I can't wait. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I love you. Group hug. Anybody else before I say good night? We had a nice crowd tonight. All right, everybody. Michael Kane. You're late, Michael. Nice to see you. Okay, guys, I'm going to go. Love you guys. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you on the 30th, the last day of the month, whatever the last Thursday is. Love you guys. Good night. Thank you.